My name is Sue Boyer. I'm president of the board of the Friends of the Oak Park Conservatory. And on behalf of the Friends, we are delighted to welcome you to our program tonight about carnivorous plants. And I can see a lot of your names. I know you. I can see Gail in there. I'm sure Gail will have a few words she'd like to say later on. But at any rate, some of you are new. If you don't know about the conservatory, I just want to give you a little plug about it. We are open every day but Monday from 10 to 4. And we are a free entry. And we have 3 lovely rooms. And one of the people on tonight, Dushan, is is in charge of the conservatory there, and keeps us looking really well. At any rate, we hope that if you haven't been to the conservatory, you come and visit us. We're at the corner of East and Garfield near Ream Park if you're in Oak Park. And if not, you can Google us, go to our website, popcon.org, and you'll be able to find information there as well. So back to our program. As part of the Friends mission, we want to educate and inspire gardeners to become more confident in their endeavors. This is our final program in the fall lecture series. And after the holidays, we'll return with our seed sharing, a seed starting and seed swap that will be in person January 29th. We also have a wonderful lecture coming up on raising onions as well. So look forward to that. And if you haven't come to one of these programs before, all of these programs have been recorded and they are available to you through our website, fopcon.org. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our special guest this evening. Christine Luking is the horticulture education serving Bond, Clinton, Jefferson, Marion, and Washington counties. I can't believe you're in all those places. But at any rate, she is a very busy person. She received her Bachelor of Animal Science production from Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, and earned her master's in horticulture, specializing in herb production on a green roof infrastructure. Chris is responsible for horticultural programming with an emphasis on the home gardener, culinary herb production, cut flower production in high tunnel and field conditions, and community garden establishment. She also is responsible for providing training opportunities, continuing education, advanced training, seasonal events. I don't know where you have all the time to do this. And organizing community outreach programs for horticulture and conservatory assistance education for volunteers involved in the Master Gardener and the Master Naturalist program. This evening, Casey Nikoloff is our co-host this evening. She's going to be watching the chat. So as you have questions, please put them in during the program so that she can kind of organize them so we can get your answers to you. So that being said, I turn the program over to Christine.
Hey, well, thank you very much, Sue, for that wonderful introduction. And just to kind of reiterate, I am especially in a lot of different areas, and maybe not always. I have carnivorous plants that I'm going to show you tonight. To say that I'm a true expert, I think we learn by doing, and we learn from all of our friends, right? So there's always someone that we can learn a little tidbit from. So I'm going to share what I know about carnivorous plants, and I'm going to have you in the chat definitely come back and share with me so that I can improve what my knowledge on them too. So thank you again for having me. I'm going to shut my video off just a minute, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Sue or Kissy, can you see my screen?
Yes, looks good.
Okay, perfect.
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Not yet for you. Kissy, are you
can you see her screen?
Yeah, I'm seeing your first slide here, carnivorous plants.
Okay.
So there might just be a lag. Yeah, for Sue.
A little bit. Okay. Do you want me to possibly record also for her so that I could send you a copy if we need to?
Well, we are recording now, but if you want to go ahead, yeah,
Oh, no,
please
that's
do.
fine. I just didn't make sure if you could see it. So if not, we can always do
Yeah,
it. So,
I can't see your screen at this point. So I'm not too sure if other people can.
okay. Well, here, one more time. Let me stop sharing. Okay. And let's do a
Okay.
new share just to make sure. I want everybody to be able to see it.
There it is. There you are.
Okay. Okay. Better?
Yes.
Looks good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good deal. Okay. So this is my first screen. So this is some of the carnivorous plants that I've kind of worked with this summer and I've had. So I'm going to kind of share with you guys a little bit about them. And we're going to talk a little bit tonight about some of their care tips that I'm going to give you and just some of the, we're going into our winter dormancy that's going to be coming up. So I'll give you a few tips about that also. So a little bit background on me. I'm from Southern Illinois. So I am close to the St. Louis Metro East area. I'm about a mile east, or I'm sorry, about an hour and a half east. So we're at exit 69. So we're right here in Mount Vernon, Illinois. I live in Woodlawn on a small farm. And again, my background is really we have a high tunnel greenhouse that we grow in. You can see it here in the lower part of the picture. I do cut flower production. I do a lot of herb production. We also have livestock. And so this is my 3 daughters, a picture of them. This is my middle daughter, Kara, got married last April. And kind of why I brought this up was because everyone is into those unique. So she wanted cactus and succulents and even an air plant in her own wedding bouquet. I will say I had to, we do cut flowers and I said, you're going to have to wrap your own cactus because I did not want the cactus and having all those little needles in me while we were trying to get everything prepared. But just kind of give you an idea, everyone, as we explore and we go, I think everyone they love plants and you become a collector. And so the carnivorous plants has kind of been a new item for me to kind of become a collector on it and learn more about. And I had to include Norman. Norman is a miniature Jersey bull calf. He was a little bottle baby we had, and he's about 4 months old now. He's at 30 inches tall. He's only going to get about 36 inches tall. So he's a little miniature and he hangs out comes to presentations with me sometimes. So if we was a little bit closer than 5 hours away, I would bring Norman and we'd visit with you guys tonight. But just kind of let you know a little bit about myself and kind of our background. So as we get started tonight, we need to think that carnivorous plants are a specialized group of plants. They grow in wet, boggy, acidic soils, and they do well in that environment. They're typically have more of a peat type of a soil, but the thing with that is that so there's not a lot of organic matter. It's low in mineral salts and other nutrients vital for the plant. And one of the most critical plant nutrients is nitrogen, which is taken up by the plants as nitrates. Nitrogen is a nutrient that is easily leached out even in ordinary soils. So for this reason, the plants that live in these soils have evolved into carnivorous plants that capture and digest insects as a way of obtaining those nitrates. So you can kind of see here, these are some of the ones that are growing in the water. Sarracenias are really great pitcher plants at the long tubes that can take that wet condition and really have advantage of it. Here's an example, kind of what a bog looks like, right? It's going to have grass. It's not going to be very neat and tidy, right? We may not want to think about that's where we're going to go out and visit. If I take my family or go, let's go for a trip and go see it, it may not be what everyone wants to go and visit on their holiday trip or a hike, right? But look at those vibrant colors. They're so great in their surroundings, and you really can tell they stand out. So out in a natural setting, they could still thrive. This is my mini bog that I've kind of created. This is some pitcher Sarracenia. It also has some natives in there. our Sarracenia purpurea. I can never say my Latin names very well. But you can kind of see, so this is a native to Illinois, and I've included it inside because they can go outside and overwinter. Again, you can kind of see, if you're going to create one, I know we had talked about earlier how you can enclose those in glass cases. Mine, what I really like to do is I would tell you that you really don't have to have drainage holes unless you're going to have like a double layer in your container. But I really like to use ceramic or porcelain to hold that water. It kind of holds it, that peat moss, and it kind of gives you an example. They're happy, they're going really well. I also like to layer some live moss onto mine so I can kind of watch my moisture levels. So that's something that I've included in my own, just to kind of give you an idea. Carnivorous plants. I mean, there's so many out there that are tropical. There's over 600 out there, approximately 250,000 plant species. So you definitely could become a collector, and you could really enjoy one variety more than others. Butterworts, sundews, pitcher plants, bladderworts, Venus flytraps. The list just is a tremendous list. And you know, we have to think about that's such a big species that it kind of takes up, like, only 0.25% of all the plants that we have in are on Earth. So it's a small, really small section of that, but there's so many varieties. So what makes a carnivorous plant carnivorous? This is a question that sometimes people ask. They might be, wondering what do they eat? What can I feed it? Some of this question was asked by an early botanist as Charles Darwin. And it was not only that the plant had the ability to trap insects, but the mechanics that they've developed, that they actually have glands that can digest that prey once they capture it. So it's not just trapping them, but actually utilizing it for the plants. So that's pretty amazing that they can do this and have evolved to do this. So some questions that we have to ponder sometimes. Why do they catch their food, right? This one right here is one of our pings that I have with some moss and a Venus flytrap. So we have to think, why is it necessary for that Venus flytrap to capture that food? We have to think, are they attracting their prey in some way? How are they going to digest that prey once they capture it? And then, we have to think that nitrogen poor habitat, is that the reason that they really wanted to kind of move on to capturing it, and maybe larger than just gnats? Maybe they needed a larger one, especially the Venus flytrap, capturing larger prey like flies might be a way for them to actually, find that what they needed as far as excreting those enzymes and having more nutrients taken up for the plant itself. We know that carnivorous plants have glands that secrete acids and enzymes, right? And once they do that, they actually are helping dissolve those proteins and other components that aids in that plant survival. How do they attract it, though? That sometimes is a question. And they actually have a little gland, and it's on the keel of the plant sometimes, and that's actually given a nectar source, which attracts some of those. Especially your pitcher plants will have that keel that it has nectar attracting. We know that these are more of a flypaper type that's going to just be sticky substance, but the pitcher plants sometimes will attract. We know that they're going to want their prey, right? They're going to capture that prey, but then what are they going to do with it? They kind of have different methods of being able to capture that prey. We know that once we get to one of our pitcher plants, or we have our one here, our Sarracenia, We know that it goes tied to the lid. Has a sticky substance around the top of the opening and downward facing hairs, right? So once it's a waxy substance, and as it gets there, it starts to pull down. Those insects are losing traction and they go down, and those downward facing hairs are going to kind of push them down, and they're going to kind of slide down into the pitcher, or actually into more of your pitcher or your tube area. They may have more of like a suction type of grasp on them. We know the fly traps are a snap type of trap. And then we also have those adhesive, or those really sticky, like our sundews that are, they're really sticky, and that just keeps them on there, and they're stuck once they get on there and captured. So whenever we go to the questions again, we have to think, how do they eat their food, right? We were talking earlier, and they were saying, well, can we feed them some hamburger? Would that work? That's not always, in their choices, right? We know that raw hamburger probably wouldn't be out in the habitat that they'll be able to have, but they are going to have insects going by. They're going to have things landing on them. Think about insects that, if you have a storm or wind happening, they might even fall into those plants, kind of, be disoriented and fall into that boggy area. And that may be a way that they're actually going to grab that food that is available to them. And then they're going to go ahead, and as they're pulling that down, what they're going to find out is that there's a liquid down in there. So they have a liquid substance. It's a discolored substance, and it's kind of liquidy, but they have these hundreds of little glands in there. And those little glands are actually producing and excreting acids and enzymes. That's actually almost like our stomach, right? They're producing these enzymes and that acidity level that's going to start breaking down that exoskeleton of those insects, and it's going to start to digest them. A Venus flytrap on the other end of it, right? It takes, and it's that snap trap, and we know that it actually starts to seal around the trap before it starts to have those digestive enzymes start. So it actually has to close in and then seal it up almost to a tight seal before it starts. But some of the other pitcher plants, having that liquid already in there, might already start quicker and have that go. Is escape possible? I have seen on my own Venus flytrap that occasionally you're going to have that crafty little fly, right? It's going to land on there, and it's going to be kind of light. And sometimes they'll go ahead and trip those fly traps, prematurely, and they'll go ahead and start closing up, but then it gets away. I have seen that happen. The once or twice of that happening, like that fly, like buzzing on there and getting away, is fine. But if that continually happens for those fly traps, what occurs is that they're expending more energy than what they haven't captured it. So if they escape, then they're going to have less nutrients, right, from all that exertion. And that one, little limb right there, that one trap itself may go ahead and turn black and die off because of that. The other thing we have to think about is spiders sometimes, right? We have spiders that will live in there. I've seen that there's been a tree frog, a tiny tree frog, kind of hanging out on that limb or the rim of it, or the lid section. You might have some webbing going on. And so it isn't always that our tubes and our carnivorous plants may not always have that advantage to go ahead and trap it if we have a spider kind of hanging out. Now, if an insect's getting down there and they're maybe starting to their digestive process and they drop it by mistake, they might be getting that free lunch, right? But occasionally, it's not always 100% guaranteed that they're going to get a fly all the time. So that's something that kind of have to think about too. So to be considered carnivorous, what does a plant have to be able to do? Attract prey is one thing. Capture prey is the second thing. Digest their prey. and discriminate between food and non-food, right? So if we have debris falling in there, they have to distinguish it. They may have to, it may be dirt, it may be debris, it may be that, a rainstorm came in and it's not going to be food for them. So what are some of the things that carnivorous plants can eat? We're going to say, I'm going to go with the raw hamburger is probably not on the top of the list, right? If someone's tried it, you're going to have to tell me at the chat session part of it. But we know that aquatic vertebrates, so a lot of times whenever you're capturing things in a boggy area in that rainwater that's settling, and you're going to have all those invertebrates that's in that natural habitat, you're going to have those as some of those items that might be devoured. Mosquito larvae, spiders, right? Occasionally one may slip in that wasn't building a web nest, that might just be there and happen to get in. We know that flies are part of their diet, gnats, things like that, especially around other houseplants. We know that fungus gnats is a big one. That's the reason that we want pings around and some of those other items that we're adding around that are more the sticky traps like that. We know sometimes you'll have caterpillars as they're not distinguishing between some of those in the environment. They might be captured. Moths, crickets, those are coming out in the evening and they may not be able to distinguish what the plant is. So you might get into your little boggy area. We know wasps. I would say there's probably one that I'm not going to say that I'm really upset about myself. I'm not a big fan of red wasp. I see them a lot around my greenhouse. And so there's definitely one that I'm not a biggest fan of. So I'm kind of happy that they help us out with them. Beetles are another one. They're pollinators. We do have beneficial beetles. But we have a lot of beetles that will fly and be around. So that is one that they will do. I have even seen in larger plants in some of your botanical gardens and areas like that. I was at the Norfolk Botanical Garden in Norfolk, Virginia, and we were visiting that one, and they talked about how they had like opened up one of the large pictures, and they had pulled out some they were thinking it was a frog that had gone in there, and then they had even had like little pieces of, they think a little mouse had gotten in there and been consumed because they had found some of their vertebrates in there. So I think that definitely it is possible of a small mouse, like your field mouse, happened to get into that thinking they were going to be safe. That they could have the acid level enough that they couldn't get out, and it basically drowned and then was consumed. And again, those little tree frogs, those are another thing. Birds, I think if you're looking out in your tropical areas, I think that's where you're going to see more of those rats and birds being affected by them. So some of the characteristics that I want to kind of talk about with you guys about is really think about how are they going to trap things? And you can kind of divide them into 3 areas. Active traps, your still trap, kind of, are they going to, like your fly traps, are they going to close up on that prey? Your sticky flypaper type, your Drosera, your Pingulatas, are those going to be the ones that, are catching them on their leaf, the surface of their leaves? Or is it going to be that pitfall, those, Nepenthes that they're falling in, those Sarcinias that they're falling down in there, right? And they're being consumed that way. So the sticky plant, probably some of these, you're definitely looking at your Droserias, your Drosophilum, your pings that are here. I will tell you that this one right here is one of my new little ones. You can see there's a tiny one that's getting started. I like, and I kind of, we'll talk about pings in a little bit. I will say I like to utilize them with having live moss around them as they're getting like seedlings and getting started, because I really like to be able to check their water and measure it by how healthy the moss is looking. If it is dried out and kind of turning yellow, then I know I need to add more water to it. You know, those leaves, as they go into dormant size, they tend to become like succulents, right? And they absorb more water. So you don't want to have too much water too soon, because it can cause some phytophthora, some root rot issues. But so that's why I really like to gauge that moss that's around there sometimes on my plant. I will say this was looking a little rough, right? It was actually down in a boggy area. It got too much water and it kind of got pushed to the back, and it's looking a little rough. It's needing some TLC kind of going on with it. And I think that kind of happens occasionally. I am not as familiar with the sundews, and I'm going to, just because I don't have any of those myself. I will say that they have the sticky substance on them, and they're catching their prey. They're amazing. I did not have luck. I will tell you, in Southern Illinois, I had ordered some in from California, and I thought that would be great for the holiday. I wanted to get some and get started before at the dormant, and then we had a really cold spell in shipment, and I lost a bunch of my order and they got too cold, and they actually, when I received the shipment, it went straight from looking healthy the one morning, and by evening, all of their leaves and stems had turned to a black, and they were gone. So that's one that I'm planning to add to my collection again. But I had not very good success in shipment. And so I'm going to have to find a local grower that I can kind of get that from. But it's definitely, they're unique. They have these long tentacle looking stems, and they're able to capture their prey. It's really sticky substance and grabs them. The one thing I will say about your Doceria is that they're, you know, they have different sundew. They're definitely different, or they have that dew, and they're really wet looking, and they shimmer in the sun. And I think that's really how you can kind of attract some of those insects, is they're going to that glistening off of it in the sunlight, and on that sticky substance. And so they actually kind of are attracted that way. They're looking at this round leaf and spatula leaf are here in Illinois. And so they're one that you might have, and I'm going to ask later if any of them have this one in your own collection. We're going on to some of the other stickies. This is probably one of my favorite ones, right? This is going to be our butterwort, or our pingala, our ping plant. This is one that I wrote about whenever they asked me. So there's different ones. You can kind of see I had one that was in full bloom. These are some new starts, and you can see how tiny they are getting started. And they mature into leaves. These are very tiny, and it's looking good, and I'm going to show it to you, but it takes a little while for them to become fully mature. They're going to continue to have those succulent leaves. It's going to go into this dormant stage now, and it's going to grow next spring. It's going to double in size. So it's definitely one that you can utilize. They have these beautiful, so they're more for the succulent leaves, but they have this beautiful spring flower that's going to come out. There's different colors, and we'll kind of talk about that. But they have a really greasy feel to those leaves, and they really are a great one to have with houseplants, because they grab those fungus gnats that you might have issues with, and they grab them, at all different times of the year. So some of the butterworts have different colored flowers. The one I have has more of that violet and white coloration to them. I've seen some yellows and some of the pink varieties. So there's so many different colors, right? You could have some reds, you can have whites. There's Mexican ones. There's lots of different varieties and species out there. So, but they are very desirable in the sense that they have that really cool succulent leaves. So if you're a succulent fan, this may be one that you want to add to your collection. This one right here, this one, vulgaris, was one that is a species that Charles Darwin studied, and it really likes rocky areas. We'll see this sometimes down when you're in a naturalized area. So you're at one of your state parks, you might be able to see this. And it has this beautiful purple flower to it. So not only does it have those really cool succulent leaves to them that are sticky, it also produces a flower that's really cute and very attractive too. As we move on to the pitfall plants, these are some of my favorites, right? The Nepenthes and the Sarracenia. These are probably the ones I'm most familiar with and the ones I really enjoy. You can kind of see some of these are ours, mine right there. The Nepenthes, I had at one of our offices, and one of our office supports accidentally poured tap water on it. And I will tell you that in a little bit, we're going to talk about that is not the thing to do because it did not like it at all. That is definitely one of our care tips that we're going to kind of highlight here in just a minute. But Sarracenia is our North American pitcher plant. It's here native in Illinois, and this is a great one to have in our collection. Whenever you look at it, you can kind of see that, you know, there's lots of different colorations around the hood and the opening of the pitchers. And so they're really attractive because there's going to be lots of different colors along with it. If you like certain different variations of those colors, there's even white ones on that hood end and that opening end. Pitcher plants are really well adapted to making sure the prey stay and don't get away, right? The opening of that pitcher tube is retroflexed into like a nuclear roll. So it kind of rolls out. So that peristome there, the surface of it is studded with those nectar secreting glands. So you kind of can see right here, all those glands right there, right? And so they're really secreting nectar to attract those insects to come in. The nectar contains not only sugars, but also a toxin, kind of like what you find into poison hemlock. And so kind of what it does is it intoxicates the insect and the prey, and they're a little bit, it's almost like they're getting a little bit drunk. It's an alkaloid conolin, and what it does is it makes them a little off balance, and they fall into that pitcher and they kind of go down the tube, and they really can't maneuver and fly away as well. So it's kind of an interesting feature that they have. There's trumpet pitchers, which are a little bit larger ones as they get to established and growing. And then although some of those pitchers are not quite as colorful, they still kill, right? They still go ahead and capture and digest those insects. Most of the species have those erect tubular pitchers, and the pitchers are modified leaves. So those insects, by those colorations, are really attracted not only to those nectar glands, but then also to those, to the tops of them to kind of get going down into them. So they're larger and really quite beautiful out in your boggy area. So they're kind of attracted to it. This one's kind of a cool one. This is another one that's not quite as colorful, but it's that green color, but it's lower to the ground, to stature wise. But it still is quite powerful in that it captures a lot of insects. And you can kind of see that the tubular end of it is a little wider, so it's lower to the ground. So it's going to catch those insects that are beetles and those spiders that are growing around everywhere, right? They're kind of cool. So Frog's Britches is one that you might want to add to your collection. So this is one of our pitcher plants, and what I wanted to kind of show, I took one of mine so that no one felt, in the name of science, right? I took one of my tubes, and I wanted to kind of show you, as you look down in there, you can kind of see that it had some liquid and it had some remnants left of a gnat that was down inside the tube. But as you took it, I wanted to go ahead and split it down. And so the liquid, when you cut the bottom of base, of course, it came out, those digestive enzymes kind of came out in the base here of it. But I cut down right here along the center of it, that tubular area right around the opening, and split it open. And you can kind of see right here as it goes down, right down here was that digestive material. It kind of started to grab those gnats, right? And it's starting to digest it. And it's kind of cool to see inside those tubes and what's going on. Another thing is really looking at, that interesting flower that they have also. So those are usually formed, whenever you have the presence of your tubes as they get started, they're going to go ahead and flower, and they look like almost like a pocket watch, right? Dial on there. So you can see they're going to have the nodules are going to have your sepals and your bracket. Here is your ovary and your ovules inside there, your stigma, your style. You're going to see the petals on the outside. And just here, they're giving you that appearance of like an umbrella shaped. And that's what's going to catch that pollen in there. Of course, the anthers are here. And we know that that's the male part, because if you've ever heard anything from the Illinois botanizer Chris Binda here in Southern Illinois, he would tell you that males have all the anthers, right? They have all the answers. So you know that the anther is part of the male part of it. So you're going to see all the pollen going there, your filaments and your sepals. So just some of the anatomy of your flowers on there. Sarracenia, pitcher plants, there's different 8 to 11 species that are found here in our kind of in the central and east coast of it. But only one is native to the coastal states in the southeast. So it's kind of interesting that you can kind of have things everywhere. These are to be locally here that we can find them. They're ranging from Alabama to the Carolinas. This one species is not restricted to the south, is our Sarracenia perpetua. This pitcher plant can be found along the eastern seaboard into the upper Midwest, and it has into much of Canada. So pitcher plants in the Low Bog north of Chicago, almost to the Illinois and Wisconsin border. So you guys, even up in our Chicago area, you're going to see these out really in your natural areas. And the American pitcher plant captures their prey by means of passive traps called pitfall traps. So when you're out and about, this is one that you're going to really want to think about looking for. Right here is our Sarracenia purple pitcher plant. And this is one that I have added to my collection. They will overwinter, and you can kind of see as they become more mature, the one thing you're going to see is they're not quite as pretty as some of them. Is that once they become mature and they're starting to go into that dormancy stage, you're going to see some browning that's going to go on. Typically, you're going to see it at the top of the openings and at the lid area, and it's going to go down and progress down into that lower area. It's not going to go all the way to your crown or your root area, but it is going to have some effect on there, and you're going to start seeing that, especially when we get into our winter dormancy time. Nepenthes is our next one that we're going to talk about a little bit. This is also our pitfall trap. Nepenthes are old world tropics, and a lot of them are native to our Asian rainforests. So we have some really cool ones. There's approximately 160 species of Nepenthes. But when we're thinking about those, we have to think this one is a local one that I could find right here in Illinois. And of course, it's a lot smaller pitcher size to it compared to these that are large diameters and a lot of length to them. So our Nepenthes, even out in our rainforest, if you have one of these, they might be looking more like this one that's kind of maybe on another house plant. They're woody vines. They have tendrils that loop up, and they loop and grab onto other vegetation, especially thinking about if they're in a rainforest, right? They're going to grab onto that vegetation and loop around. So they have these tendrils that loop around. The end then of that long tendril that's going out, that end begins to swell, and it becomes and develops into a fully large pitcher in that. The pitcher itself, it has a lid or a hood. Some people may call it a hood, but the hood does not close completely, right? It actually helps to keep the rain out. And that's really more of a protectant so that it isn't flooding those pitchers full of water that's taken away from that digestive enzymes. And what the when the lip is open and the pursurum or the hard surface, and I'm going to go back just one thing here. So like right here, this is a hard surface on some of them right around here, right? So this pursurum or that is in the front of some of them. They'll even have a keel that will be like right up here, possibly right here is your keel part of that hood. And that's what's going to hold that nectar inside that pitcher that's attracting those insects to come in. And then you have this waxy substance that's like right here on the inside of that pitcher that's having that insect kind of fall down in there and keep going downward. Inside, once they're inside there, that's where all the digestive glands and all that enzymes are being excreted. So you can kind of see, I mean, they can become very large and they have so many different colors of pitchers and tropical ones that you would have. Some active traps are here listed, and those are more your bladderworts, right? They're going to actually have flowers, but they're also going to have this sticky substance all along their stems, and it's just going to basically like stick and grab any insect that kind of gets snarled up in there and you know, kind of stuck in there. And they're kind of going to have to, as they're trying to struggle to get free, they're going to just be kind of stuck in there. And you can kind of see all these glands along through here are capturing and excreting those all of our glands, and they're, you know, they're just becoming quite enthralled on all of them as they're going. So you can imagine how sticky that is, and it's just grabbing everything in sight. So here's a part of that gland, a little close-up of that bladderwort. Typically, these are found in a sunny, wet area, and some have highly developed for trapping a prey, right? They actually may even grab something out of the water if it's been along the water, and they will grab the insect and they'll bring it inside that kind of that bladder, and it's a water-filled trap, and then they begin those digestive processes once it's trapped inside there. So it's definitely one that's a unique way of capturing it and keeping it in there. Here's a couple of pictures of that. This one is from actually it's offline. It's the UK pond bladderwort. So this is one that was taken from one of our British universities that we kind of have some really great close-up pictures of. This one is another plant that's primarily grown for their flowers. So you can kind of see they're very unique. They've got those banners on them, and they're all these really cool colors that are attracting some of those insects to it. And finally, as we kind of get through here, I want to talk a little bit about some Venus flytraps. We know that's our spring-loaded ones, right? Those are our snapping ones, and we want to think about the Venus flytraps. They're named after the Roman goddess of love and beauty, right? And they can be very beautiful, but very lethal. They're probably one of the most known, you know, of our carnivorous plants. The Latin name means mousetrap, and so that really is kind of giving us that snapping type of fascination, right? We probably fascinate that because we think, oh, we can feed them, and this is one that we actually, they have carnivorous food that's a white gel, and you actually can take tweezers and place it in there. I have seen it, and I bought some of it to have as kind of our workshop. We fed it with this gel. I've also seen where they fed it with mealworms to kind of put it in there too. I've seen someone feed that. They're probably one of those that it's native to the coastal plains of North Carolina and the northeast coast of South Carolina. They have these modified leaves that have been developed at the ends of the traps and the end of the leaf. And this means that they're actually a movement of the plant as it captures its prey. So that whole plant actually moves. And there's numerous theories on how the trap actually moves. These theories are so long to add here today, but There's lots of things that, you know, you can look up about Venus flytraps and actually the science behind them. So here's some more pictures. There's red varieties, there's green varieties, there are all these modified colors and, you know, leaves that have been modified. So there's lots of different species that you can have. There's another picture. You can kind of see how they kind of can grow. So this is kind of where we can see is kind of the native habitat. So Illinois is really not a native one. But it's kind of cool that it's pretty close into our growing zones area that it's actually out as a native one habitat. As we look closely, we can see that these hairs are actually what's causing this fly to trigger it, right? It's not just landing on it, it's actually triggering these hairs that's on the inside of this to go ahead and start to close. Again, like I said, we can have the trap be sprung a couple times, but if we continue to see that there's nothing that's being captured, that part of that plant is actually going to go ahead and turn black and brown, and it's going to go ahead and continue turn that black color and die off. These are some of those really cool leaves and flowers and seeds. It's an example of it. I think these are just pretty cool. These are looking a lot like your lilies, blackberry lily seeds is what I kind of recognize them as. But those are kind of a cool one to think that they're in the Carolinas. And if you're out and about, you might be able to see them out in their natural habitat. These are ones that you can find a lot of times in our big box stores. Those are pretty common to get started. And I think they're just a great one to kind of have. They continue to produce new traps as they become growing. They're going to go ahead and, like I said, you can see here's a black one. If it's becomes exhausted and it hasn't fed, it's going to go ahead and turn black, and then it needs to be trimmed off. You can see there's new growth coming out. It's going to continue to thrive. It just is going to not have that modified leaf that's going to be able to capture anything. So you can go ahead and trim it off. So remember, for these plants, some of your fly traps and your Sarracenia care, we want to use water that has either distilled water, rainwater, or reverse osmosis. And when you think about that, it's not pouring it from one or one system into another. I have little brothers and they say, oh, osmosis, I learned everything you know, right? It goes from you to me. What I'm really talking about is that they have some pumps and you can actually get a filter. And what it'll do is it'll run through the filter. I've seen it at a lot of your larger greenhouses, especially if you have those that are specializing in a lot of your house plants. They'll use this reverse osmosis. And it's because you have minerals, and really some water systems are hard water. And what has is those minerals are bad and they really hurt the plants. And like I said, the Nepenthes that I had some office help that kind of came into my office and was helping me out, and thought she was doing a great job. And she took some regular tap water, and it caused some spotting to happen. It caused some leaves to turn brown and to start to prematurely discolor. So it does affect it. And I think it's just because of the minerals they're in there kind of as doing that. The other thing is really with your fly traps, we really want to think about they cannot dry completely out, because once they dry completely out, they need to have some moisture. If they're dried out and you're like, oh, I forgot to water them, they're going to suffer the most extremely, and you're going to have death occur from that. Probably more so than overwatering, right? You're going to definitely have problems with death, and the leaves are just going to droop and wilt, and it's going to be hard to recover from that. No fertilizer. Again, this is one that really doesn't need it. They do like, full sun, bright light. So that's one that you want to think about. You also want to think about your mediums, right? So that soil mix, that peat moss based soil. You could use perlite or lime-free sand is one that you can use. I wouldn't buy, any of your potting, even cactus mix, would have more sand in it, but it would still have that organic matter. So you want to think about not adding any of that. You know, your sphagnum moss, your live mosses, things like that are a better choice. And, you know, remember that they're going to require dormancy period, right? We know they're going to need to have those 3 months to 4 months of a winter dormancy. They need that cool period. So, you know, we kind of talked those care tips. We want to think about their soil. You know, there's lots of different probably suggestions out in the market of what everyone has. I know you can buy those little terrarium kits that are going on. You know, using those light sources, a grow light to have a bright light. Definitely one pings. You can do a little lower light. They don't need such a bright light. They could, but they still need supplemental lighting. So, you know, really think about those lighting issues that you might have. Water is really one of the big things I would say. You know, collecting rainwater, distilled water, reverse osmosis, definitely is a key to doing it. I would say I have seen, and I got a couple more slides, you're going to see even having, you know, a bog that's more your liners and having a double water like container system to have water underneath available all the time, and a more of a wicking type of system would probably be a little better. I like to use, you know, my ceramic pots, unglazed terracotta pots are a little more porous. You know, we use those a lot for our succulents and cactus because it pulls that water out to that terracotta. And so they dry out a little quicker. So this is one probably would not be recommended on my end of it to use for your carnivorous plants. Our dormancy, right? This is one I really want to talk about. You know, we really think about our carnivorous plants as being kind of like a hardy perennial, especially our sarracenias, you know, that they're in our fly traps. They can take a little bit of that cold weather. So they're gonna go back. They can survive that dormancy that's got that cold temperatures. Really the best thing you can do for them is that you can take and put them in an unheated greenhouse. You can put them in a garage that's unheated. They just need that cool period. They don't need to necessarily go and freeze, right? But it depends on the container you have it in with the water. But if you have them out and you have them in an unheated area, it is fine. They're going to go ahead and you're going to see that die back to that crown, that bottom part of it, and it's going to be fine. Those tubes are going to turn brown, and you're going to just be able to trim them off, and in the spring they'll start over. I did include on here though, and someone can correct me if you want, for sure. North Carolina had a PDF article about growing carnivorous plants, and their dormancy period is, they said you can protect them from extreme cold by digging a small hole in your yard and burying the whole container up to the rim in the garden. You monitor them every week or so until the ground freezes to be sure that the medium doesn't dry out. And then even in their dormant stage, then you want to reduce your watering, but you don't want them to completely dry out, right? We don't want them to completely go. But in spring, then you dig them back up from that site, and then you take them into a sunny spot. So that was a new approach. I had not done that myself. North Carolina gave this as a recommendation. So I thought I would kind of add that to there. You can check it out. They do have a really cool PDF that I've included the site right here that you can go and download and look at for some care tips. So this is kind of that bog type of situation, you know, that they're talking about. You can actually create this if you want in your own backyard habitat. It's a pond liner. You can create your own, you know, water source underneath it. You can put it in cages and kind of raise that up, your plants up out of it. But this is definitely a way that you can add that sand, like they talked in that substrate, to have it and have your own bog kind of going on here with your water plants. You got to think about here, they have a floating mat. So this is really like that hydroponic system approach to it. You're going to have algae going. I would say don't get duckweed in there, right? But they are seeing some algae kind of going on it. I would say the one thing is that if you were going to use your Venus flytraps out here in this type of a setting with this floating water raft, they typically need more drainage than your pitcher plants. And so you're going to probably see more browning and issues with them. I think this is a little too much, but it might be that, this was one of our other hort educators had this going in his backyard, and he said that he did see some dieback from it, but it is another option that you have, especially in the summer months if you don't want to have to water and take care of them. So outside plants for Illinois, these are ones that will, again, a list of them that will grow. Plants, right here that you can use that are hardy. Only pitcher hardy. Illinois' one is this one without protection. So think about those. You're going to need to still protect them somewhat. But these are ones that they do give recommendations on. That would be a great one to include outside if you have a back patio that you don't have a lot of space and you need to put it back there. Where else in Illinois can I see carnivorous plants? So you guys, this is a location closer to your area than downstate Illinois. And usually I'm always talking about everything in downstate. So this is kind of exciting for me. At the Bolo Bog State Natural Area. This is one that right here that you're able to see those carnivorous plants out in that natural area. If you have a wetland in a natural area, typically it's not necessarily this bog, but wetlands, again, they have, especially for hunting and things, they'll go ahead and turn that water into that wetland area. So you might have a chance in another wet natural area to be able to also see some of those plants in their natural environment. So this is one right here. You can kind of see where you could go. So this is what one would look like out in their natural area. It's kind of hidden, right? It's not quite so colorful, and you're going to have to get maybe track out there and take, but this would be a great place to grab, some great pictures of them and see what they look like in their natural environments. So some of the sources that you could go to, like I said, for me in right here, I am looking up to have some greenhouses in the Metro East, St. Louis area that I can go to. I have ordered from California. I did a couple of our local greenhouses, one at Plant Land in Breeze, Illinois. She actually had some of the pitcher plants. So, your big box stores, you might luck into it in the beginning of the season, especially Venus flytraps. You're going to be able to find those. But this is some great resources if you're just starting out. And like I said, I am really a novice on everything. So I'm going to say that, this is a great resource that helping me would also possibly even help yourself. I do follow a few influencers and on social media and Instagram. I'll follow some of the growers that are carnivorous growers. They'll put out a lot of good tips, and you can pick up some information. Remember always to go back and see if it's great to go to some of those sites, those social media sites, but you really want to go to one that's going to have a university research behind it, like North Carolina, or even going to another location like your botanical gardens or another .org site that's going to give you some research-based information back on that too.
Christine, this has just been a great presentation. You've given us so much information. I know we have a few questions that we'd like.
Absolutely. And I'm going to leave my survey up here. I'm going to flip one more and I'll flip back to you. So this is a picture of myself. My hair tonight isn't very curly, but I do have, this is my contact information. So you're always welcome to reach out to me and email me any questions. If I don't know, I have a team here in the state that can kind of help me out too. So, and I'll leave this up if you guys want to give me some feedback on the presentation tonight.
Okay, thank you. We have just gotten so much great information that I think most of us do not know about. And I know that we've got a few questions that Casey might like to present to you.
And I'm and come off. I'll go ahead and start my video, and that way we can talk. Everybody can unmute or even that I'm welcome to do that too.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think a testament to just the breadth of knowledge that you shared with us today. We only had a couple of questions, and I think you were reading our minds as the questions were coming in as well. The first one was from Gail and asking about overwintering. I think you really covered that in the last few slides there. And then Rebecca, kind of the same thing. She was asking if she were to bring her pitcher plant inside, would she need to feed it in the winter? And I think she said, oh wait, I don't actually need to bring it inside.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and you can bring it in. Like I said, I have my little bog, and I have it here. I brought it for you guys to be able to see. It's right here. You could move it in. I'm going to put mine into my unheated. I have two different ones. I have that large high tunnel greenhouse, and I have a small. It's an 8 by 16. And so I'll actually move it there. I wouldn't have to, but I think I probably will, just because I want to keep it alive. Like I said, it's struggled a little bit. I'll show you the little ping too. So some of these you're going to be able to bring in, right? They're tiny, they're little, they may be getting started. These are some new starts, seedlings. So I want to go ahead and make sure that they are taken care of, and they're going to become more mature. And so doing those extra steps would be fine. I don't think it's a problem. I will say my lighting in here today, I can't show my light source. I apologize. I'm at a different office today. But I actually, in my office in Salem, I actually have that additional grow light above my my carnivorous plants. And so it adds that extra bright light to that area, and a little bit more humidity too, so that you have that inside, because sometimes we have, things like that.
Great, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
You want to?
Oh, sorry, Sue.
Yeah, do you have another question that you want to have answered, and then we'll wind this up?
Yeah, just one, I guess. Do you have a recommendation for people like myself who do not have any carnivorous plants, who are looking to maybe get one as a beginner? Is there a great place that you would recommend that we would go?
Yeah, again, like I said, they have, so if you become interested in this, like the society, they typically will host, like their associations will host sometimes a plant sale or swap. I would go to one of your reputable nurseries, that has more house plants. Typically, if they have succulents and house plants, they're going to have that opportunity to possibly have your carnivorous plants there. Typically, you get at the big box stores, and I'm not going to say anything bad about those, but sometimes they're in those little boxes, and they're pre-packaged, and they probably have been shoved around and moved around a few times. Not that this is bad, but they probably haven't had as much care as they would in another nursery setting, and the water requirements and things like that. So I have my little pitcher plant, and I'm trying to get it so you guys can kind of see a little bit. Now this one, it is actually, so it has feet on it here, as you can kind of see. I actually have it on the east facing windowsill, and then my kitchen area, and it gets enough direct light that it's getting enough bright light that I kind of have it kind of housed there, and it hangs out there for us. Watering is another thing. Again, your water requirements. Remember though, in winter, we're getting to that time that they're going to start going into that winter dormancy, and we want to reduce our watering, right? We want them to go ahead and have a reduction in water right now. So it's okay. We don't want them to dry out, but we want to, so that's where I guess a beginner tip would be, I really like having that live moss growing. If it gets too long, you can even snip it, right? And take it back to its base and let it continue to grow. It's just a great indicator. If it's nice and green, like you kind of see, and in my bog here, you can kind of see how dark green it is. I don't know if you can kind of see, I'm kind of close. Maybe let me pull back. I can't, the video. But that dark green indicates that it's getting enough water. If it was yellow, we knew that it would be drying out, and it's maybe not getting enough water. So sometimes those are easy tips for those beginners.
Well, thank you so much, Christine, for all this information. I think you've gotten people interested in looking into.
Well, I'm sure you probably have some experts that I definitely can gain knowledge from myself. So
Well, thank you.
Can we
for
ask another beginner question quick?
Sure.
If we have a Venus flytrap inside,
Uh-huh.
does it need to eat like flies and things at a certain interval, or how does that work?
Yeah, and they you know, they're going to kind of, as long as they're having growth and everything, they're going to be okay. You know, they're going to grab things that you may not even have seen. Like there might have been like a little gnat or a fly around the windowsill that's come. A lot of times those little ladybugs that get in, sometimes they'll grab those too. So I think they might be harvesting. Have you not seen them harvest anything at all? I mean, are they still green and looking fine?
Oh, well, we have not actually, we haven't gotten one yet. We were just
Oh, okay,
planning on it.
yeah. So I mean, it may have already you know, actually gotten something at the nursery that you hadn't seen. So as long as it's going, you don't have to necessarily feed it. It
Okay.
should be able to take care of that and capture it. Now, if you don't have anything, then it might be that you can supplement it by buying that carnivorous gel food and you know, feeding it. And it has a recommendation on there for the size of it and how much to feed.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, we've reached 8 minutes after 8, so I think we're going to have
Okay.
to end our program here. We hate to do it. We could go on a little further, I know, but many people have to leave and do other things. So I do want to remind people there will be an evaluation coming out to everybody. Please take a minute to fill it out, and we're always looking for new topics. And thank you so much for all your energy and all your knowledge. I think we've all learned something about these plants.
Oh, absolutely. And if you want to know more about cut flowers, that's definitely my specialty too. I'm happy to help you out sometime.
Okay, sounds great. All righty, thank you. It's
Thank
nice-
you.
And thank you everyone for attending tonight, and have a good evening.